Hey fellow netizens, Plus here. Judging by the fact that you're here, you definitely didn't come for gameplay education or lore exploration, you came for cultural exchange. And I just so happen to know the question burning a hole through your frontal lobe. Out of all the morally bankrupt operators, which one drains the Doctah the best? And no, I'm not talking about emotional damage or financial drainage. I mean aerophysically, straight up. At this point, it should be obvious that I possess a completely healthy and normal fixation on a very specific operator trope. The kind that treats the existing list of committable crimes as a checklist and the uncommittable crimes as fun adventures. Well, I am a fan of If Evil Why Hot Woman, how could you tell? They might have influenced the types of videos I have been making for the better part of last year. And because Rhode Island doesn't do background checks, these individuals aren't a liability, they are my personal collection. These are the women who don't ask if you are tired, they don't care if you lose all at Uncle Kennard's game, they don't care if you are emotionally devastated because your cat just got disintegrated by your ex-wife, because they require you to quench their thirst. But when push comes to shove and Priestess does get rage-baited into raiding us again, these war criminals might just be the last line of defense, and they will demonstrate what a true dominatrix is supposed to do. They will be the last remaining to plab the Doctor and preserve the bloodlines. So, which evil operator can drain the Doctor the best? Let me ask you in return. Have you ever gooned with your life on the line? Today you will, because I've meticulously analyzed the 5 most post-moral operators and will present them in a climatic order. Without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? The first operator on our list is someone from Syracuse. She is well versed in the art of fine cuisine, theatrical performance, and intended manslaughter. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Lapland, the Unemployed. Ever since the last Syracusan event, she has become more powerful, even crazier than before, and less likely to be fixed. Everyone keeps yapping about how they can fix her, but nobody yaps about why they would fix her. What if that is precisely how I want my mentally deranged and unemployed lone wolf to be? And to be fair, even if you plan to fix her, I would strongly advise against that for your own safety, considering that not even her dad was able to fix her. She might lack the dynamical assets of a great MILF, but this is more than compensated by her unemployed ass, because she has all the time in the world to drain the Doctor. In fact, plapping the Doctor will be her new employment at Rhode Island. There's a very well-known saying in Syracuse: the Syracusan way is the best way. I did not make this up, it came from a dream. When it comes to draining, I think Lapland might just be the most raw and physically abusive one on the list. Don't be fooled by her modest manner and extravagant Syracusan attire. She may appear to be well versed in her culture and noble etiquette, but she is a whole different beast when it comes to intimate physical interactions. She would only show her true intention for the right occasion. She's the type who would make the drainage physically staggering, the kind of bone-crushing grip that makes the originium growing on her thighs pierce through your skin. All your senses would unanimously tell you that she is a huge red flag and not worth the effort, but I know you came here to explore the abusive relationship from the get-go. You would quickly become so defenseless, all you can smell is that Italian wine she had drunk and the faint but lingering originium dust that has been rubbed off from all the physical altercations. Well, unfortunately, the Unemployed doesn't concern herself with her partner. Of course, I do have to remind you that Zaro is also involved. How should I put it? He is the audience of this theater. Let's move on to the next criminal on the list. This operator is someone I always wanted to talk about, but never quite had the opportunity. She has traveled through various places and liberated other people through music. The criminal in question is Arturia, also known as Virtuosa. The day she escaped the NPC jail was the most joyful one, but considering the long list of crimes she has committed, she might never escape her sentence in the future. Yes, she has been an upstanding criminal throughout her entire life. Third-degree murder, ending her mom's life when she was just a child, convincing all of her music teachers to to unalive themselves, triggering a revolution in Sargon that killed a Lord Amir, stealing a copy of das Güldenes Gesetz, and worst of all, conspire with Überreste to revive the Witch King himself, and all of that in the name of liberating everyone's true emotions. I can go on and on talking about her little fun facts, but we aren't here for that. We are here to get fixed. If you are not familiar with Arturia, she might not appear that special at a first glance. Unlike Lapland's crazy and unpredictable behaviors, Arturia is the calm and manipulative criminal. Instead of pointing the blade at your throat, forcing you to comply, Arturia would convince you to perform her music in front of you. And here's the kicker: her music can bring forth our deepest desires. All of your innermost thoughts, whether good or down bad, will be shown through emotional outbursts or unfiltered actions. That's right, you won't be able to hide your lustful urges from her. In fact, she wants you to fully embrace it. The intrusive thoughts are always gonna win. That's why her cello is a tool of mass destruction, and once she gets to play it to make you embrace your lustful thoughts, she will not be sitting on her chair playing her cello for long. She will be sitting on you playing her cello, while you can inhale the fragrance of her hair. She might not have assets as thick as the other contenders, but I can assure you that these are definitely some of the softest and smoothest you will ever experience. With Arturia, the drainage would be the most emotionally and mentally taxing, because she doesn't just take from you, she excavates your deepest desires, ones you didn't even know existed. The experience is split evenly between physical exhaustion and arts-driven illusion, until your sense of time and space dissolve entirely in the process of losing all your juice, until you realize that it was all an illusion and she was just living rent-free inside your head, and all you did was happily making out with a furniture, aka single-player sex. Arturia can drain you completely without even making any physical contact. Some may call it immoral actions executed at a competitive price. I call it disproportionately favorable results achieved through remarkably restrained costs. And you too can spend less and get more resources in-game by using Loot Bar, the most affordable and safest OP and PAX trading platforms you will ever find. Loot Bar offers prices up to 23% cheaper than the official store, with a 6% off coupon for new users. And if you ever intend to steal my coupon, just know I will remember that. Your name is going straight into my book of vengeance. I have recently started using Loot Bar myself, and I have to say, these are the kind of deals Closure doesn't want you to know about. As I like to say, whale smart, not hard. Loot Bar is also backed by an abundance of positive reviews across every gacha game imaginable, and they even offer a 6-day after-sales support, meaning refunds are guaranteed. Additionally, they use a self-top-up process, so your account stays secure and your rewards arrive instantly. They even have a dedicated Arknights emulator, letting you manually purchase the exact deal you want with full control. So, if you don't want to miss out on the opportunity to whale economically, click the link in the description to sign up and get an extra 10% off coupon. Next up is someone I have covered not too long ago, because some red flags just needs multiple shoutouts. She is a historian, a career criminal, a professional backstabber, and most importantly, a seasoned drainer. Yes, it's Holheak. This feathered snake sees her criminal record not as a liability, but as a progress tracker. She's my go-to post-moral operator for onboarding other like-minded new hires. She has committed crimes in the private sector, crimes under government employment, and has built the longest uninterrupted streak of betraying her colleagues purely in pursuit of reclaiming her true potential. But Holheak doesn't just excel as a dedicated criminal mastermind, she also possesses some of the most attention-demanding assets on the landship. Being part of an elder race, she comes equipped with both feathers and a snake tail. Her tail can apply unrestrained pressure, while her feathers offer the kind of aftercare that makes you forget why you shouldn't trust her in the first place. That being said, we do need to talk about her thighs. Personally, I classify them as a gravitational anomaly, because whenever I'm reviewing operators in her presence, my vision would just drift towards her central mass. And then there's the upper half, which has fully entered what I can only describe as late-stage advanced mommy territory. These are the kind of proportions that suggest the planning of a continued bloodline. All assets considered, Holheak's physique is the most dynamic and fertile, which makes her an exceptionally efficient drainer. However, if you think her raw assets are what makes her superior, then you are terribly wrong. Unlike the previous two, Holheag has something far more lethal. How should I sum it up? It is a generational edge. When it comes to draining someone, she doesn't just have experience, she has inherited experience. You see, Kukulkans don't just pass down culture or history, they pass down their combined experiences, skills, instincts, muscle memory, and yes, even the kind of knowledge that normally requires years of physical practice. Her so-called dynamic asset, that is just what you see on the surface. But what does having a generational edge actually mean? It means Holheag doesn't experiment, she doesn't hesitate, she doesn't even ask for your feedback, she executes with generational precision, the likes of which you have never felt before. And because she wields wind arts, she doesn't even need to rely on conventional leverage. She can reposition you, elevate you, rotate you, all without laying a finger on you. The previous two could only dream of this kind of vertical drainage. The next operator on the list is even more violent in her approach to draining the Doctor, because she was raised to become the dominant force. Wherever she goes, death follows. Of course, I'm talking about none other than Eblana, also known as Necros, also known as Eblana Banana. There are several things that makes Eblana fundamentally different from every other evil woman we have covered so far. She is a natural ruler, the kind of leader who could unify an entire nation through any means necessary. From the surface, she presents herself as a charismatic leader, someone who appears almost divine in her actions, but in reality, she is just as morally bankrupt as the rest of them. The difference is that Eblana is not simply evil by circumstance or impulse. She is ideologically committed, a Draco ignited by a freezing flame. Eblana possesses a form of charisma capable of swaying hearts, minds, loyalty, and my neuron activities. She does not merely command devotion, she extracts it, even when that devotion inevitably leads her followers towards their own death. She is by default a psychopath. She would burn down an entire city to the ground, only to raise its people from the death as an army in service of her personal crusade. For Eblana, annihilation is not collateral damage, it is merely the inevitable side effect of playing with her toys. After all, everyone will eventually die. Destruction is not the goal. It is simply what happens along the way. She operates with a vision far broader and more detached than anyone else we have covered so far, and it only makes sense that her method of draining would reflect that same long-term, uncompromising mindset. This is not about indulgence or impulse, it is about dominance and control. Now, setting aside her extensive crimes against Terrans, I must take a moment to openly glaze her exceptional physique. Just imagine the experience of being absolutely dominated by someone both politically and physically, where the power imbalance is so severe that negotiation was never on the table. And while she may look undeniably hot, it is important to understand that she's actually cold to the heart. This isn't metaphorical, her body exists in a state closer to a corpse than a living being, probably reanimated through her unique arts ability. Her blood is literally the purple flame that ignites through her chest. Whatever she truly is, however, my response remains unwavering and intellectually consistent. Wood. You see, Eblana is a Draco, and that alone comes with a set of very handy traits. Her burning chest, her tail, and most importantly, her horns. These horns curve upward rather than forward, which makes them quite practicable. Of course, the real concern isn't leverage, but the temperature. Any physical contact risks being flash frozen on the spot, though as someone who has willingly placed himself on her leash, this is ultimately a minor inconvenience. If anything, your own body heat merely becomes another resource to be extracted by her. The uncomfortable truth is that Eblana is never easily satisfied. Never underestimate a Draco's stamina, and hers in particular. Once she begins, she does not stop. Dried up, flattened, squeezed, probably broken bones, but you still want to continue. You will be completely drained out. Death by snoo is unavoidable, and so you did. But if you think that this is the end, you are gravely mistaken. This is only the beginning. Iblana will revive you for a second round, pushing you to your absolute limits until you fall again, and then she repeats the process. Eventually, your tank is no longer just empty, it is completely gone. And even if you try to run, there is no escape. She will hunt you down relentlessly, wildly, I might even say, because you belong to her. Not just in life, but in death as well. But if you thought this couldn't get any worse, it will. Moving on to the next operator. She is the worst of them all, a walking calamity. It's Skadi, the corrupting heart. But before we can even begin to understand her, some context is required, because you cannot meet this version of Skadi in any normal timeline. This is not the Skadi you know. This is the Skadi from a timeline where her Seaborn cells fully awakened, where the blood from the firstborn was activated, and where Ishamlar was revived, using her body as an avatar to command the collective will of the Seaborns. And in that timeline, Terra lost. This is not a story about a single war crime or even a sequence of atrocities. This is a post-apocalyptic world where every power on Terra failed, where resistance collapsed, and where all sentient life was assimilated into Wemeni. Every friend, every colleague, every familiar face you once knew is gone, absorbed by the ocean that now walks on land. Thanks to her, only two sentient beings remain, you and Skadi. At this point, comparing her crimes to those of the other contenders is not just pointless, it is almost insulting. The term war criminal no longer applies here. Skadi, the corrupting heart, is not a criminal nor a villain. She is the embodiment of the apocalypse, with genetically embedded motivation to assimilate everything and migrate further into the stars. But none of this should stop us from admiring her from every possible angle. Despite being the only other remaining person on this ruined planet, Skadi maintains a form that feels almost impossibly perfect. Her hair carries a glossy, flowing sheen, moving as though it were still one with the waves. Her skin is smooth, pristine, untouched by the collapse of the world, to the point it becomes easy to forget that she is merely an avatar for Ishamilar. And then there are her armpits, or should I call them fin pits. Just like every other part of her body, they are immaculately maintained, shaped by the ocean, cleaned with the constant current of the waves, a sweet dessert for the eyes, smooth to the touch, and the taste is an unmistakable hint of sea salt. If you don't volunteer to get drained, she will force you to do so. She does this for a reason. You are the last remaining individual yet to be assimilated, and Skadi will exhaust every possible method to convince you that the Seaborn way is the only way. To her, this is not a reverse grave, but salvation, and draining is simply one of the many ways she will persuade you with. After all, there is no competition for her left. Once it begins, there's no retreat, and no alternative path left to consider. What she takes from you is not merely strength or virginity, but identity itself. Your body, your thoughts, and your consciousness slowly dissolve into the collective of we many, until the boundary between you and Skadi erodes beyond recognition. At that point, it is no longer just drainage, it is assimilation. She will nurture your body only to extract it from you again. This process will never end. In fact, you will forget when it even started. Time itself loses all meaning. You no longer measure its passage in days or years, but in cycles of how many tons you have lost, though even that framework eventually collapses into something equally meaningless. And through endless adaptation, guided by the will of we many, you too will leave Terra behind. You will fly into the stars, consuming worlds, enduring by necessity, continuing this eternal cycle of survival and evolution until the end of time. That, my fellow netizens, is how I gooned too close to the sun and plummeted back down at terminal velocity. As always, a massive thank you to all of my privileged consumers. You guys are genuinely awesome and remain my most primal motivation for continuing to make these normal Arknights videos instead of seeking professional help. Special shout out to Zodiac, who continues to deliver absolutely exceptional illustration for my video thumbnails. Last but not least, I want to thank my editor for his constant contributions to the growth of this channel. This has been a very pleasant and exciting cooperation, one that I truly value and do not take for granted. Just don't look for his whereabouts. I can assure you that he is not cuffed up in my basement, forced to edit my videos 24/7. That being said, if you find yourself equally cultured as I am, feel free to check out some of my other videos, and if not, go talk with the people on my Discord.